Liverpool were one of the best teams on the planet. We were in Champions League finals, we won the Champions League, we won the Premier League, we were the highest pressing team on the planet. We played football that nobody could cope with. We had many names on the Ballon d'Or list as well. We went from that to being one of the worst teams in the Premier League. From 6 games, we've lost 5 of them. That is an awful and atrocious form right there. That is a relegation form. So how have we gone from that to being one of the worst teams on the planet? We need to dig deep in terms to see the reasons what is going on and just ask questions. And a lot of people are talking about changing managers. Is Slot the issue? Have we bought far too much too soon? Did we lose Luis Diaz too early? There's a lot of questions to be asked, and I'm here to potentially ask questions and answer them at the same time. So let's dig deep into the reasons why. So what do we know? We know that we're in one of the worst forms from Liverpool in such a long time. In the last 6 Premier League games, we've lost 5. That alone is a sackable offence, in my opinion. But again, I'm not the one who's making this decision. Number 2, our style of play has completely gone. We're walking around. We don't seem to have an understanding if we're pressing or not. There seems to be a principle or a foundation on it's okay to walk around. Let's just have this pace at the whole game. You would never see that in recent years. Under Klopp, regardless of whether we were playing bad, we even finished out the top 4. We always had a style of play where we worked hard, we ran for the ball, and we always pressed. Those were the principles of the game. We never went away from them, regardless of results, form, or how we performed. It was always a pressing machine and working hard abilities. Technical abilities came after, but it seems to me Slot's ethos and principles seem to be walking away from that. It does look like we've now gone to a factor of technical ability rather than this pressing machine. There is games, for example, in the Madrid game where we saw high pressing and it worked absolutely amazing for us. We won comfortably, we dominated the game. When you do get tired and you got to go back to your principles, people walk and people revert back to what they know. And it seems to be a message within the club that we're not this pressing machine anymore. We've walked away from our identity and we don't seem to be the team that we're really well known for. Style of play is a huge factor. I just feel like we've 100% changed our ethos and our principles within the squad. So it's interesting to see, is this because of new players coming in? Is it the manager sending this message? But we do need to identify and clearly highlight that there's a totally different style of play at the moment. This isn't a style that won us the league. This isn't a style that won us the Champions League. This is a style that we've completely had to adapt to. And maybe we agree or disagree, this is a new system and a new style of play. I understand. From what I'm aware of, we've always won league titles and Champions Leagues through this style of play that we're aware of high pressing, running a lot, sprints, and counter-attacking. It seems to be the opposite these days where we're walking back, and the goal of the weekend when Nunes crossed in, no pressing, walking around, letting them take the cross if they wanted to. That is the polar opposite of what Liverpool's known for. So whether you agree or not, whether Slot stays in or not, the style of play has completely changed, and we have to agree that this is a totally different style for sure. And number 2, it comes to the fact of Slot. Let's talk about Slot in his decision making. Now, I do worry about Slot a lot, and I've said this in numerous podcasts, and I've said we need to start asking questions of Slot, his decision makings, the things he says, and the way he performs. When he's putting the team sheets out, near enough every single team sheet seems to be different most weeks. There's been teams where, especially recently, where we've kept the same team. It's just simply down to the people that we've got injured. So then we look at the other factors of substitutions. He's made bizarre substitutions where he's well known for that last season, changing things at half-time, making an impact. Now, I do know in the beginning of the season, we did win last-minute goals where he put a substitution on, for example, Chiesa, who won us the game last minute. But there was a lot of last minute goals, and that raised a lot of red flags with a lot of people in the football industry talking about this can't last. So that is a huge factor as well. One of the biggest factors for me is the fact that he seems to be so concerned with what is going to be happening with the other team. Do they have long throw-ins? Are they going to be crossing? Is it a high ball? Do they play the ball on the ground? There's such an external thought process on what the other team is doing rather than concentrating on ourselves. Jurgen Klopp once said, we will play football on our own terms. We will make it ugly for them. So when we play football, it's on our own basis. This seems to be the polar opposite. We are constantly worried about what the other team is doing and how they are going to play. That has never been Liverpool. We play counter-attack and chaos football in a productive way. When we get the ball, we have a red arrows going forward and we play to win. This game seems to be what is happening, what do we need to react to rather than a proactive approach. This is really worrying. I first noticed it at the end of last season where we seem to be constantly reactive to certain situations. The beginning of the season, I knew it straight from the Newcastle game. I felt that aura of we're constantly waiting for the other team to make the attack or the other team to do what they need to do, and we will counter-attack. Now, I understand I mentioned counter-attack in football, but that is the case of we press them so high when we win the ball, you counter-attack. Not the case of let them do whatever they want and then we counter-attack. Those are two polar opposite things. And Slot's press conference seems to back this up. In every press conference, he's talking about they did X, Y, and Z. They had this, they had that. We didn't think they were going to do this. Why are we so fixated on what the other team are doing? This isn't what Liverpool are known for. We are constantly worried about ourselves and how we perform week in, week out. We don't worry about who we're playing. We play our own game. So that is a huge worrying factor from Slot, if I'm completely honest with you. One of the biggest concerns as well with Slot is the fact that he's not able to integrate these players. When you spend millions and millions of pounds on a certain development, whether it's a football team or a housing project, whatever the case is, if you have somebody looking after that place and you spend huge amounts of money and the place isn't running as smoothly as you wanted to, the operations isn't going too well, you remove the manager and have somebody run that place better, because the operation costs way more than the manager itself. So we need to make sure whoever's in place has the capabilities in order to make these million pound development work. Now, my worry is his development work of integrating these players is non-existent. He's brought in Isak and Ekitike to play. It's almost like he's brought in all these players and then he's like, here's a team sheet, go out and play. We seem like a team of 11 players who are just playing for the first time. There's no system, there's no understanding. I understand it's a new season with new players, but there seems to be no idea. Do you integrate them slowly? There needs to be a plan. There can't just be this chaos of having all the players on one pitch and just saying, go, hope to God that we win this game. There needs to be an integration process. There needs to be a form of understanding what happens when, not just putting players onto the pitch. You've spent this money, now let's just see what happens. That is poor management from me, and that is one question Slot needs to answer. I understand there's new players for him and he needs time to reassess things and bring players into play, but that is your job, to slowly bring these players in, slowly integrate Kirker, slowly integrate Frimpong. The thing that he did wrong was just integrate all these players from day one and hoping to God that it works. Isak came in late with the late pre-season injuries here and there, and he's hoping to God he starts whenever he can. But again, there seems to be no thought process in having these players integrated in the right manner. And on the case of new signings, you can have one bad new signing, you can even have two, but three is more than a coincidence. Every single player we've signed, barring Ekitike, but his form has been a bit dodgy lately, every single player seems to be way off. Now, that isn't because they're an awful player. You know, we've signed one of the best midfielders, young midfielders in the world in Vert. We signed one of the best strikers in the world, Isak. We signed one of the best left backs in the world at the time last season, Kirkes. Frimpong was absolutely tearing it up in the Bundesliga. How have we bought these amazing players, brought them over, and all of a sudden they don't even look like they belong in the Premier League or the Champions League? They look like a League One team players. So that is a huge worry. This isn't, one or two players. This is every single player that we brought in seems to either have a really bad dip in form or they're just completely way off. To me, that screams management, integration, understanding of the game. There should have been a better process to integrate these players. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't one or two players. This is every single signing that we've had has performed awfully. Not pretty good, not average, not pretty bad. They've performed awfully. They've had little blips here and there in terms of limelight. Ekitike scored a couple of goals for sure. He's looked good. He's probably barring the only one. Verts looked pretty good against Real Madrid as well. But again, you're talking about little blips here and there. Overall, these signings have been awful, and I don't blame any single one of them. I blame the person who has tried to integrate them, and that is a huge worry. That is another question Slot needs to answer. So maybe I don't provide answers today. Maybe it's just questions, but questions do provide answers. So I need to know what is going on with these players and what is he going to do to fix them. There'll be a lot of questions whether we want Slot in, Slot out, do we change managers? But again, we need to look at the options that are out there in the market. If we're going to react to this, again, I don't want to be a reactive team. I want to be a proactive team. Who's out there? Who's able to handle these players? Who's able to integrate these players? Who are going to make these players better than they already are? Those are the main questions we're going to have. There is a team there. On paper, we have one of the best teams in the world. The team that we have shouldn't be performing like this. This is way below the performance that we should be having. So this isn't a question of, is this normal? Is it a blip? We are playing way below the performance that we should have from these players, right? So now we need to understand who, if we do bring in somebody, are able to perform these players to the highest level, because on paper, these guys should be winning league titles and Champions Leagues at least. You're talking about the best striker in the world, the young best striker in the world. You're talking about the best left back in the Premier League last season. You're talking about one of the best talents in young football right now. Talking about another player that has performed unbelievable at the Bundesliga. So we're talking about all these players that we spent a huge amount of money, and yet we're talking about a relegation form. This shouldn't be aligned to each other. This should be polar opposites. So if we do get rid of Slot, which could be the question in the next couple of weeks, who do you bring in? But for me, I don't think you should get rid of Slot right now. Yes, I believe he might not be the right man for sure, but I want to understand what he's thinking, what's he going to do, and maybe give him a couple of games, maybe till the end of December, because we're out the title race right now. There's a top 4 challenge that needs to be happening. We're still in the Champions League, so there's still a little bit of hope in that regard. But we need to understand what's he going to do to turn things around. There's been talk about Klopp's team winning the league last year, and some arguments, some are against. That was fully Slot, that wasn't. But right now, it's fully Slot. Whether you believe it or not, this is Slot's team, whether he likes it or not. Now, my worry is there's too many questions popping up, and he's not answering them. Let's go over the questions Slot needs to answer. How is he going to integrate the team? What is going on with the style of play? There seems to be no style of play, no character in the team, no understanding of any sort of system. Are we pressing? Are we not a pressing team? If we're not a pressing team, how are we going to play? There's too many questions in terms of our style of play. And that is a huge worry when you're 11 games in the Premier League and we're coming up to December soon. That is a major red flag. And number 3 is the fact of his appearance to the media. He keeps overindulging in terms of what he's going to be doing, what he's not going to be doing. He keeps talking about the other team. To me, that is a manager that isn't confident in his own ability. We need to understand what Slot is going to be doing. We need to see some sort of system play. There is no system play in this team whatsoever. I'd like to understand what his image and what his vision is. We have a manager in place. He's won the Premier League. He has credits in the bank. I honestly believe he's used a lot of that credit up. He's on his fine line right now, but there's a lot of questions to be asked, and that is a huge worry right now. If we were to change managers, and again, there isn't a huge bundle of managers on the market, you're probably going to have to poach somebody that's already at a team. People talking about the Bournemouth manager, again, he's not performing amazingly well. They've conceded way more goals than they should be doing. Again, it is Bournemouth. They should be in a relegation battle, but they're not blowing people out the water that we should be hiring their manager to. There isn't a lot of managers out there to get. People are talking about Zidane. I'd stay well away from. I don't believe he's a coach. I think he's more of a personality coach where he's a big name. He'll come in Real Madrid, the Bayern Munichs that are already established, well above the performance that they need to. This is a team, he goes into teams that are already well oiled and he just performs. This is a team that needs heavy construction again, real hands-on approach, getting their hands dirty. Almost at the time when Klopp came in, obviously we're not as bad. Maybe we are because of the position that we're in, but we need somebody that's going to be coming in, getting their hands dirty and making this team work. This is a crisis for sure, and we need to understand what we're going to be doing moving forward.